We're live.
It looks like we're live. Yeah, we're live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa. All right.
Let me just. Okay, cool. Welcome, Corey.
Yeah. Feels good to be back.
If we
Hey,
survive the winter,
yeah. It's pretty freaking cold.
the
Well, not as
polar,
cold as you though, but
the polar vortex of 2019.
yeah. I got a little candle here. I'm getting some heat. But yeah, this weather's insane.
Yeah, but we're getting there. We are getting there. Let's just jump in. Is that good?
Yeah. Well, I just had some comments about I listened to your live stream last week. It's pretty good. It's good. You definitely like towards the end, I was laughing. You're like, yeah, Corey's gonna laugh at me because I have no idea what to say now. So we should probably also focus on what is there a chat? Yeah. Check out the chat too. Keep up with that. Because I noticed like
this needs to be I got a request from people that listen to this on audio.
Yeah.
We shouldn't take for granted that some people see the screen, other people can't. Unfortunately, this show not going to be good for that because we're going to show off all the crazy stuff that's been going on the past week, which is like a ton of stuff. But we'll try and like if there is anything in the chat or something, we'll try and keep that audible, I guess, for people listening, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know if, basically, do you want to just start now? Do you have any other comments about what I did last week?
I'd have I had to attend to some personal issues last week, and I feel like I came back and everything was built. All the infrastructure was built for everything.
Isn't that crazy?
It's I came back and it was like, holy crap. I mean, I was seeing stuff come in day by day, but it was like, holy crap. Well, I just took on some 2 weeks ago. I mean, Unwriteer released Genesis, Babel, Chronos, Meta. I mean, and now what people are doing with it, all that stuff, like Bitcom, BitChat. I mean, it's nuts. It's freaking nuts. And it's almost like it's going so fast now too, because people are building on top of that stuff. I mean, this really is like the infrastructure to let other people start building some incredible things.
Yeah, Unwriteer is pretty much a god. Like I don't even know. There's no way he's one person. I mean, that's my opinion. Like I don't understand how someone can be this prolific.
Yeah.
He gets websites up in a matter of minutes, it seems like. What I think we should really talk about first is that he's really building the plumbing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which for the first time that's happening. Like all throughout Bitcoin's history, people have been building, and this is not new to anybody in SV or anything like that. But what we've noticed is that when we were in London, right, the entire topic of conversation, every single person was the Bitcoin is good enough for what I want to do. I want to do all this crazy stuff on top of it. Just let me do that, right? So they wanted to build on top of it. Unwriteer is the first person putting together like the plumbing, as we want to say, right, to build applications on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're about to show people, it's going to be kind of crazy because we skipped over, or I guess what we talked about last week was op return is now 100 kilobytes, right? And what you can actually do with op return as 100 kilobytes is insane, right? You kind of, I'm saying that's insane because now I'm starting to think, well, what can we do with 1 megabyte? What can we do with 2 megabytes, right?
Yeah.
The 2 megabytes that I download, like, when I'm watching, when I'm streaming music from here to work, right? That's probably 50 megs at minimum, right? So if you start kind of thinking about like, what if we start uncapping things? How crazy can this get?
Yeah.
Already on top of, and if I'm missing any, someone let me know. But as far as I know, we have Bico. I'm going to pull these up here, and we will actually put links to these. we'll actually put links to these in the description when we're done with this. But bico.media, bico.media. This is a way of accessing files stored on the SV blockchain. We have, and we're going to show all these, but b.bitdb.network. That is something that Unwriteer created, very simple. On top of his Bitcoin simple storage protocol, which a lot of people are adopting kind of off the bat here, he's essentially created a 4chan on chain. Except I guess I'll just show this, right? We got to just show this here. So if I, let's see. So you can see here. So this is b.bitdb.network, right? And let's see if I can, I'll show you guys a file here. I don't need to show off my, yeah, sorry. I know that looks crazy right now. Let's see. Oh God. Just realizing I don't put anything on. I need to I need to be careful about what I put on, here. Let me just make even a text folder that just says, okay. I'm gonna edit that folder. I'm sorry, Corey. We can go ahead and talk while I do this because
you're good.
I was like, I know I'm gonna upload something that has like all my passwords in it or something.
Yeah, and, you got to be careful with that stuff, especially on a live stream. Okay. What does that say?
This is so cool. So I'm literally just uploading a text file, right? But the important thing to understand is that, like, so it's just gonna read as text. This looks insane. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, this is pretty messy. I'll try and talk, and no way it takes it. La 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 la. Brennan said, "Whoa, trippy."
All right, so I'm uploading. Here we go. I'll bring it back. So I've uploaded a text file. Just pay with money button. Which money button? Amazingly simple. And ta-da! It'll pull up right here. If this is mine, hopefully it is mine. We'll see. Might have. Let's see here. This might be mine, undefined, unfortunately. There we go. This is so cool. So you can see pagereturn.com is another one that we haven't mentioned. I'm guessing because I didn't save this file as .txt, which that's my fault. Did not do that. So b.bitdb did not know how to read it. But pagereturn.com, another website built to kind of view things off the blockchain. And the potential of this is really quite crazy. You know, I'll just pull up this clock that we created. So there's a cool thing that, you know, I'm taking a trip. Just want to make a countdown clock for that trip, right? I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you should show that because that's
because this is only with 100 kilobytes. We can start putting websites on chain, right? So we can actually start having websites that are serverless in nature, and all they require is some kind of viewer to look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of,
it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, you know. Because, I mean, when people start running websites, you know, they have to do a lot of upkeep and IT infrastructure, you know.
And so we have what'sonchain.com, right? So what'sonchain.com here. Great block explorer. Encourage everyone to check them out. But you can see here, just have some HTML, right? HTML, where we're just saying, you know, here's an equation, right? Whatever else. And now I can go to bitcoinfiles.org, another great website. And we now are just running a countdown clock off of Bitcoin blockchain, right? I mean, this is insane. This is insane to me that this is the first time we're doing this in 10 years. Like 10 years of Bitcoin is the first time we're allowed to do this, right? Now it doesn't stop there, of course, because we can take a look at, you know, Unwriteer putting images on chain, right? Whoa, crazy. We also can play video games on chain, right? So I don't know. I haven't played this yet, but one player. This is a NES ROM on chain. This is all running off the Bitcoin blockchain, and it will be here forever until it's pruned. But we'll talk about that. That's obviously something we're going to have to talk about here, since no one. I mean, look at this. Let's see. I haven't even played this. I'm literally playing this. You know what I mean? I don't know how to play,
but it's pretty sweet though.
A button A, B button S. Yeah, whatever. You get the point, right?
Yep.
We have this great article, bitpaste.app. I mean, within a week, this stuff has come up. Bitpaste.app. Shout out to Ryan Charles, who put a great idea. This is all on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's essentially like Pastebin. Just formatted I'm guessing look at that. Okay, nice. Yeah. So in HTML, he even bolded the title, put a hyperlink in, right? And signed it himself. And he put a great name. I encourage everyone to read. We'll try to put a link to this if I can remember. Putting domain names and email on the blockchain. I think it's a great idea. He says he's going to build it with money. So good on you, Ryan. And then the last thing. So this is Bico.media, which we talked about earlier. This is Snake. So I'm playing Snake on chain, right? Pretty cool. And this is, I believe, just the beginning, right? Because you start thinking about, well, we can start linking to other transactions. I'm going to stop, otherwise I'm going to keep playing this. All right,
Whoa.
Cool. Was that sharing to other people? I just realized that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I pulled it up on my screen over here just to make sure it's good.
Okay. Good.
Also, just to check the comments too.
And we, I want to also make clear, we actually have not covered half the stuff. Like I actually see Peter in the chat. Matter.cash is actually picking up a lot of stuff. Looks like they're going to put their entire app on chain. They were that blogging app. We can see OIO.cash, which still deserves a shout out here. You can have search opportunities. So you can now start imagining, we can start putting everything on chain. We can start actually searching the Bitcoin blockchain for more useful information. And then I guess the last thing we should call out is sv.memo.cache, which I'm told is going to be memo.sv soon, hopefully. So we can now create large memos, right? And I'll just, again, show this off. So we found out that Bitcoin.com actually mined our old big memo, which we put that big yours post we had. So I wanted to see if Bitcoin.com would mine this one, which is, I'll just keep paging down. It was like a Bart Simpson type thing, right? So sv.memo.cache now supports large memo. I think you just have to go into your settings and turn it on. So
I was kind of surprised to see that they picked it up.
They picked what up? Sorry.
They picked up the previous one that you sent.
Yeah, so it seems like they're experimenting on it. And this maybe brings us into the if we're going to say Bitcoin as a data storage ledger, right? This is now apparently is controversial. I know why it's controversial. It's controversial because Bitcoin Cash is now jealous of what we've done. I know that that's true. Everyone that trolls you online is ever going to admit it, but they are completely jealous that Bitcoin SV can now have 100 kilobytes, just 100 kilobytes in Opportune, right? They're jealous that in a week and a half, we'll have 64 meg sustained blocks, according to the Bitcoin SV team. I saw Steve Shatter said in his interview with Kurt, which that was a great interview. I recommend people go watch that. He said he actually believes that terabyte blocks is now sooner than he thought previously, which gives me a lot of hope, right? Because if terabyte blocks are very soon, I imagine these limits are going to keep increasing more and more rapidly. And I hope that by doing that, we're going to end up with a exponential growth of applications being built, just like in the past week. I'm guaranteeing you we probably missed stuff, right? We probably have already missed stuff. And that's just in 1 week. Everyone should go look at Unwriteer's Twitter because he's releasing something new every day. All right. So any projects we missed that you want to talk about, or should we move on?
I guess we can just move on. I mean, yeah.
So,
I mean, well, just the one thing to like, yeah, I mean, like you said, all of this works at scale. I mean, when you start thinking about everything everything running at scale, like everyone's website. Like, I mean, we're starting to see Metanet actually become somewhat of a reality, you know, or at
Bingo.
least the idea of it, you know,
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I think for the past couple months, or well, past month since Metanet was presented, it seemed like everyone was kind of like, oh, this is just this abstract thing. Nobody really knows what it is. How is it going to do? Like, oh, it's the same thing as made safe. I've been hearing a lot of that. Like all this,
Yeah.
yeah, all this garbage. But now, I don't know. This is actually setting up the infrastructure for something pretty legendary. And I think, I don't know. I started watching. I'm not up to date on it, but I started watching a little bit of the Valley of Boom. Have you seen that on National Geographic?
No. Mm-mm.
But it's talking about like the internet and how the internet came to be and some of the BS politics that kind of happened with it. And some of the stuff is just like so crazy how the vision that some of these people had back then for the internet and what it is now and kind of the timetable that it took too. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of a lot of similarities, but yeah,
And
I can't wait.
well, I think so. So the reason why we even wanted to call this title is now the again the medium blockers and the small blockers alike are now arguing, well, Bitcoin shouldn't be used for data storage, right? So what we're actually doing is spamming the network. We're you know, whatever else. And the question becomes, should everything be on chain, right? And this is again kind of in my opinion, shows the radical difference in mindset of the way everyone's kind of thinking about things. You know, the argument now is like use IPFS, right? Just use IPFS. So let's cover a few things. Number one, op-return is prunable. Okay, so this is what no one really is getting, right? So we're all saying this is all immutable, it's all forever, but technically, any miner could start pruning op-returns tomorrow, right? Now, the question is that a bad thing, right? And this reminds me of like Ryan Charles' central thesis in his presentation he gave in November, which again, he says he didn't come up, this is an old thing in Bitcoin, is every problem with Bitcoin can be solved with Bitcoin. And what I mean by that, right, is, okay, we should start putting as much data on chain as possible, right? Number one, because we want to scale Bitcoin. And the best way to scale Bitcoin is to make miners mine big blocks. But number two, if op returns start being pruned, there's a very big business opportunity for anybody involved that's listening or is a miner themselves to store old op returns, right? To store op return that is valuable, for example. Maybe it's in a miner's best interest to store op returns forever because there's enough people wanting what's in the op return, right? The root difference between the way everyone thinks about Bitcoin is that people in that I've noticed building on top of Bitcoin SV understand that you can, like, basic economics fixes these problems, right? Because you can say, well, it's not sustainable for a miner to hold all this data in hard drives, which I'm not convinced of, right? I'm actually not convinced of that whatsoever because the NSA does it, Amazon does it, Google does it. You know what I mean? So everyone who says that miners aren't going to hold all this data, I'm not even convinced of that. But let's assume that they start pruning op return. Who cares? Who cares? Why not have a service that stores op return forever, right? Start indexing this stuff, right? It's just remarkable to me that there's no basic understanding of profit seeking in economics in honestly every other span of Bitcoin. Like I don't see a difference in the way of thinking between people that are on Bitcoin Cash's side or Bitcoin Core side. They all believe the same thing, that we need to be told that you listening need to be told as to what you can put on the Bitcoin blockchain, what you can spend your own money on, right? And that's what actually pisses me off the most, is that the same people who threw the permissionless buzzword out a few months ago are now saying, no, you cannot be doing this on chain. This is stupid, blah, 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 blah. right? And so I imagine if Bitcoin.com does start mining larger op returns, I imagine that there's going to be some pushback from other miners, from even the community. We're seeing the quote unquote community that is apparently a real thing in Bitcoin, because you got to please the community, is upset. They're really upset that Bitcoin is cash. It's not a data storage ledger. But that's not true, right? There is value in putting data on a blockchain forever. There's value in having a Library of Alexandria, dare you. So I guess that's what I have to say to that piece, right? Is that it's not sustainable, whatever else. Yeah, I understand people don't think it's sustainable. It's just like if you told someone that gigabit fiber when the internet first started would be a thing, they're not going to believe that either. So it's just that's kind of what I have with that piece, right? Now,
yeah, there's a lot of business opportunities with this. I mean, the problem is right now it's like the market for this stuff. Like, what you just need to build it, first, and eventually it'll be necessary. But I mean, there's so many business opportunities once this thing starts really scaling.
It's what I found interesting, right? Because I think Unwriter tweeted it out. Is he? I don't know if you've ever seen, and if you haven't, there's probably no point in looking at it. But 4chan, the Biz 4chan thing, that's like their board, and they just pump chain link. That's from what I've barely looked at it. They just pump link, which is some cryptocurrency that apparently does something. But even he posted some thread where it's like he said even 4chan is noticing. But I'm reading comments on there. Of course, these are all idiots who think that they're going to get rich from buying whatever the hell link is, right? But Unwriter was like, "Hey, look at this thing, look at this thing I built. It's this entire website you're using, only it's on a blockchain, right? And by the way, we're not going to stop here. We're going to raise the limits. We're only at 100 kilobytes, and this is still nothing, right? We're going to raise this even higher, right?" And in reading some of the responses, that was just like, this is what's propping up the crypto economy, and it makes you kind of lose a little faith that any of this stuff is worth as much as everyone's telling you it's worth. But anyway, so now the question becomes, what are the implications of having a immutable ledger that stores all of the world's data, right? And this is in my opinion where the conversation gets interesting. So people are gonna tell you, well, it's only cash, right? If it was only cash, why have a full scripting language? Okay. If it was only cash, why even have a 4.8 gig? There was no restriction on push data, but it was limited by like FAT32, I think. So, why even allow that big of data to be pushed onto the stack, right? And the reality of it is that it was always meant to become and encompass everything, right? And Satoshi talked about Moore's law over and over and over and over again. Until Moore's law ends, I actually don't buy it that the miners that are making thousands of dollars every block that they mine, I don't buy that they're not going to just buy another hard drive. I really don't buy it. You know what I mean? But if they are, fine. Everyone listening, go build a business. Like literally, go build a business. Like today, go build a business that you're gonna not prune op returns. Okay, you're gonna run a node that does not prune op returns, and you will provide that service. Okay, go do it. Please do it. Now, the implications of you're going to have what I honestly believe is the future Library of Alexandria, right? It means that information cannot be lost. Valuable information will not be lost at all, right? Do you ever go to Wikipedia when they have they're begging for donations? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. Well, today I saw that they incorporated BitPay. Just side note.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
But yeah,
they're begging you for donations all the time. And actually, I had a very interesting conversation with my sister-in-law. She's like Wikipedia. I use it a lot, right? She uses Wikipedia. but she's like, it begs her for a donation on that header all the time. And she clicked on one time and it said, "Do you believe that information should be free?" And she was like, "No, no, I don't actually believe that information should be free." Right. Like, and she, we had this whole conversation where I kind of agree with that, right? I actually agree that I think Wikipedia's downfall is that it's volunteer run and it's held by gatekeepers like Greg Maxwell, who have like 10 sock puppets on Wikipedia. Right. And I just saw this video today. I mean, it's insane. There's this one guy who was named Time's top 25 most influential people on the internet. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy lives in his parents' basement, essentially. No offense to him or anyone else that does that. But he
saves money.
Yeah, he's not making money because he's just volunteering. He literally is the third, I might get this wrong. He's one of the most active editors on Wikipedia. Something insane, right? Insane amount of articles edited. And the question becomes, how does he actually know that much information? Like, I guarantee you he probably has some knowledge, but do you think he's actually an expert in every single page he's edited and written articles for? Like, of course not, right?
Right.
And they asked the question, like, why do you do this for free, right? And he was like, "Well, I believe that free information is valuable and whatever else." And that's fine. It's a fair, whatever opinion to have, but
wonder what his parents think. Side note.
That's a good question.
Continue.
That's a good question. But I start to wonder, right? Like, what if everything he submitted, what if every edit, which luckily for Wikipedia it is, you can see all the past edits, but what if every single edit was not only seen and immutable, but also determined based on value? So like him as a reviewer, he may be the most prolific, what's the word? Voluminous, what word is prolific? Is that a word? Voluminous.
I have no idea.
Editor or writer on Wikipedia, whatever. Editor or writer on Wikipedia doesn't mean he's valuable. Doesn't mean that the things he's contributing are actually valuable, right? He may have some kind of like reputation that they're like, well, I'm going to take this guy's word for it that he knows what he's talking about. But it doesn't actually mean that people are like willing, like, this is so good, I'm going to pay for this. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think like SV
prolific.
and the idea of Metanet, it off, huh?
Prolific.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah, thank you. Thanks, chat. But I think it's interesting though, because this idea of like Metanet and everything actually allows this person to start creating value and getting paid for it as well. Instead of just doing it for free. I think
he can move out of his basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if he is that smart and prolific, he can profit off it. Yeah, that's it's interesting.
Yeah.
Think about it like that way.
Honestly, and I think the core thing that I guess bothers me, and it's all these things. It's all these things. There's things I wish we had asked Roger when we talked to him. There's things every week though. I'm just like, God, I wish I could have another conversation with him asking these questions. How can someone that you believes in, and to his credit, Bitcoin.com is trying to mine these larger opportunities. What bothers me is about the entire narrative that Bitcoin shouldn't be a data storage ledger. It's people telling you, it's supposed free market capitalist people that are telling you, you can't put this on chain. That's remarkable to me. That's absolutely remarkable to me. You know what I mean? And you start to wonder, you start to think about like, okay, well, if everything's on chain, like again, Craig, I think was the one who was talking about this a lot, especially at his presentation, but I definitely saw him bringing this up a lot and it makes a lot of sense. Information without value is data, right? So if I go to, if we look at if we go to this BitDB feed that Unwriteer created, not all of that is actually valuable, right? And the question becomes, and this is, again, where that intermediary service or that business opportunity becomes, that capitalist system that can be created on top of Bitcoin is, do I need to see some of the stuff that's an opportune? No. Do I actually think it's going to be valuable in 5 or 10 years? No, probably not, right? But you know what I do think? I think someone is going to store all of this data, and I think that someone who wants to see that data will be able to pay a price to get that data. I always believe that capitalism will win out in this scenario. So no matter what's going on, I actually believe that there's an incentive for the people to keep the data, whoever they are, whether it's every miner, whether it's one miner, whether it's some other person. And then I believe that there's always a price people are going to be willing to pay for that data. And if a lot of people are willing to pay a price for that data, the cost is cheaper. You see what I mean? But what you don't end up with ever is a scenario where I'm trying to find a video of, and this has happened to me so many times, of like literally there's an episode, because shout out, the first video on chain was a South Park video. I don't know if people know that, but I think the first video someone put with 100 kilobyte was like a thing of Cartman or something, right? There's this like video of this whole South Park thing that I've been wanting to find forever, and it's just deleted off the internet. You can't find it on archive.org or anything like that. If I could pay someone for that, no matter what, but if the opportunity was there for me to pay for it, I'd do it. You know what I mean? And that problem goes away with Bitcoin. So you think about the benefits that come with this. And everyone's going to say, well, blockchain is a notoriously slow database and blah, 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 right? It's a lie. It's all a lie. When Satoshi was the very first person to say, it does not hit a scale ceiling. He said that from the very first day. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm starting to think about this even longer term. You start thinking about all this data that's being put on chain, and then this is getting like AI robotic-y, but I mean, really, you could create AI and statistical models to test different, theories against each other using this vast amount of data, to the point where, you could actually like, I think what we have a problem in today's society where a lot of people just spew bullshit articles, and there's really no like fact checking per se. Um, and I think you could actually develop some type of AI system in the future utilizing all this data and utilizing all of this to kind of add like a validity check to most of the stuff. And I mean, obviously this isn't going to be up tomorrow because you need all that data to build on. But the fact that all that data would be there and you could run AI on all of this data, like it kind of goes back to the I can't remember his name, Stefan Nielsen, a universal source of truth, like kind of that stuff, kind of using all of this vast amounts of data to validify, certain statements or facts or anything like that. And I mean, you could actually create like a Wikipedia based on AI, using AI to like kind of create a Wikipedia, AI Wikipedia. We should do that.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just whip that right up. We'll have that up tomorrow. Knowing Unwriter, he might actually have it done already, so I don't know. But
well, I think like what excites me the most, because so many things are coming together that people aren't appreciating. I would hope people that have been listening to what we've been trying to do since we started this thing understand this. But I go back to this quote that Craig in March last year at the Satoshis Vision conference, when he first, I think it was kind of his first public presentation about, hey, Bitcoin's a small world network, right? And everyone was like, no, it's not, and or whatever, they're not important or anything like that. But at the very end of his presentation, he had this throwaway quote. He said, "This is the network that DARPA wishes that they created," and because he was talking about the fact that it couldn't be shut down, right? That it was sufficiently distributed and it was sufficiently competitive where no single node could shut down, or being taken off could shut down the network, which is different from Tor, right? Which is different from BitTorrent. It's different from Silk Road. Like all these other things have something where you can cut off the head, right? But he said that, and so you start thinking, okay, so this thing cannot be shut down. So information will be accessible to anybody that wants it. It's built on capitalist ideas, right? So it's fair as the world gets, right? Life probably isn't fair, right? In I go back to the Library of Alexandria idea. where so much knowledge was lost in humanity's history. And so you start to wonder, how will this affect us moving forward? How will this affect when you have one global data layer that everyone can query, that I can run video games off of, right? That I can earn money while doing everything that I interact with it with. That robots can earn money with doing everything around it, right? And this goes to, you talk about AI, cellular automata, right? This is when we first talked with Craig a long time ago in August, and we asked him, because I was so curious. I'd heard all the stuff about particle swarm optimizations and cellular automata running on the chain, right? And he was talking about, you can build algorithms where something, if it wants to live, has to make money, right? So you can start designing artificial intelligence, not general artificial intelligence, but AI that optimizes what it's doing based on profit. So maybe it's more, you can have your self-driving car start doing things that's most profitable. And then you can make money off of your self-driving car that you bought. And by the way, everyone riding in your self-driving car now have rides everywhere for cheaper, because that's, again, this is all capitalist ideas, right?
Right.
The world becomes different. And what I guess upsets me is that it upsets me that the idea that we couldn't scale Bitcoin has taken so deep of a root in so many people's mindset that they're not even considering that this stuff is possible. You know what I mean? When in a bad way, I'm seeing it as an inevitability. As long as we can get to a point where miners are sustained and incentivized to keep mining by June of 2020, I view this as an inevitability. When you look at the stuff that has been built in 1 week, from raising the op return limit to 100 kilobytes.
I think it's going to get pretty interesting too. With, you talked about the incentivization for miners, making sure that's there by June 2020. I think, what do we just see today? I think we just saw one of the top third miner in BTC.
Poolin is their name.
Yeah, been mining SV. I don't know. It's something to keep an eye on, because I think miners are obviously mining for profit, and as soon as we start producing bigger blocks consistently, I don't know. It's going to get really interesting. Things are going to start to shake up a little bit.
And we haven't even talked about contracts. We haven't even talked about property. I guess property contracts, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, what I will probably do, buying a house in a couple hours here, we'll probably put that contract on chain, because why not? Now I have proof that the contract exists. I can probably in 100 kilobytes upload the entire contract, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll encrypt it first for psychos.
Yeah, you might want to do that.
Right, but I can start encrypting things. As I mentioned last week, you can start encrypting messages, right? The world gets the possibilities become so endless. It's kind of ridiculous to me. I guess we should move on. We're probably ridding ourselves, but it almost to me can't be stated enough, because I cannot state enough how frustrating it is that we're still having debates like this, that there's even 3 Bitcoins now. It frustrated the hell out of me when we had 2 Bitcoins. Now we have 3 Bitcoins and 2 sects of it, which arguably is the majority up from the economic side, from the market cap side, right? The casino side, they're the majority. I don't believe that they're the majority of people actually engaged. I don't actually believe that at all. But if you want to argue in the terms of the casino, they're the majority, and yet the thesis from all these so-called freedom-loving anarchists is that you cannot put this on chain, because no matter what you want to do and what the miner is willing to accept, we're not going to allow it because we think it's stupid. Omri does not want to do this. How insane is this? Am I taking crazy pills? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the same people who just are like, oh, I love, and then they get upset when like people call them socialists. You know what I mean? They get all upset. And it's like, you're engaging in the act of central planning, which I always go back to Hayek, was the definition of socialism. It was the definition of socialism. You know what I mean? But they get so offended. They get so offended when you say it. And it's because I don't think they actually understand what their actions entail from an economic perspective. They're actually limiting growth. You know? Boy, oh boy. You know, and again, we haven't even talked about the fact that data can have value associated with it, right? So you can start talking about, like, again, if we can have this live stream going, right? We can have the live stream just churning money, which, you know, Keyport is working on this. They're getting there for this, but imagine if the data itself is on chain, right? So imagine if, like, the data, the access to the data is controlled by who we give it out to based on keys, right? So you can say, well, you can only access what's in this transaction if you have some kind of authentication. We're talking about rebuilding the internet. You know what I mean? Rebuilding the internet on top of a value-based system, which I would argue is a meritocracy, right? And that's really what we're building, is a meritocracy. And in that case, it doesn't surprise me that people who don't want to actually build anything of value are advocating for this, because they want to, again, they want to sit on like 4chan, which I still have this up. I need to get this off my screen. They want to sit on like 4chan or something and just pump link. this thing is insane. I mean, what do we go look at this thing? It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. They want to pump link and make all this money and then walk away. They don't actually want to do anything of value, create anything of value. And I believe they will get burned from doing that, right?
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah. So, Corey, I think we are at 41 minutes. So we got 19 more if we want to use up our hour.
Okay. Man, I don't know. There's just like,
it just feels like we're beating a dead horse, but I don't know. Like it.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Is like, I feel like I'm starting to go in circles now with this stuff, you know.
And yet people don't understand it. They don't. That's the mind-boggling piece to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I still have my snake game just running off Bitcoin.
So I guess we can go into, you know, well, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but why? Because you talk to like an average Joe saying, "Oh, hey, we're rebuilding the internet on Bitcoin," you know, like their next question is going to be why? Like, why should we just redo all the work, you know? And obviously, it's the value that's added with Bitcoin. Now we can, you know, add value to items, but how do you break that down easily to people?
Well, so I think that's actually a good point, right? We had a conversation, and this is why I don't think I would surprise the strategy of the big players in SV are taking this stance. So it's not going to come from users. So like we're not interested in convincing the kids on 4chan to buy Bitcoin SV. That doesn't actually benefit us at all, right?
Yeah.
But if you can convince a business to say, hey, we have we have cheap and immutable data storage for your entire business for cheaper than a cloud contract or something like that.
I think, yeah.
And by the way, it's there forever, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certain laws too where companies have to make sure that, you know, their data is like, well, their data has to be secure, but then there's also like this whole thing of like immutable or something, or it has to make sure that like it can't be like destroyed easily. I don't know. Do you know what the word I'm looking for? I don't. Obviously, there's some law out there though that companies need their databases to have a certain amount of strength. And I think when you're talking about an immutable ledger, there's not much more stronger you can get than that. But then just the cost too.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna save so much money putting your website or your database for your company on Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
also is gonna start to be interesting because then miners will then miners will start making deals with companies. You start getting into this idea. Well, I think you tweeted something about it. But say, hey, I'm a miner. I will take your data, make sure it gets in the next block or the next block that
I will sell you, right?
that
You
I
could say, I
mine.
will sell you 3 gigs of data every block, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to charge you this amount of money. And you never go to an exchange and buy Bitcoin ever, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that these problems are again, we've been thinking so small, so small. But yeah, exactly. Very good point. And I saw a question because I think this is probably a good thing to cover, right? So the question was generally, how can we even run the internet on Bitcoin? In saying, I'm not a programmer, like help me understand this, right? So maybe we could walk through this because again, I think this is only the beginning, right? When you have transactions that can reference other transactions, that can call into other transactions, and this is really the looping structure that you know, and I'm going to say this with the caveat that I don't fully know what I'm talking about but my understanding is that this is kind of that Turing complete aspect of Bitcoin that has been talked about, where the Turing tape is the blockchain, where you can start referencing other transactions, calling into other transactions, and executing code. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that's kind of my understanding as to how this works, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is like, well, how does this work, right? So the first thing you have to understand is, let me share my screen again. Okay, cool. So how does a web page work, right? So this is that clock that we were showing earlier. A web page. So what you see actually here, and for anyone audio listening, this is HTML that we're showing. Sorry, this is not going to benefit you. But you can see here, this is just basic HTML code. Okay. And if you wanted to run a website, if I were to download this here, which I guess I could, let's see. Maybe. Yeah. So, well, I don't know. If I could easily download this text, which there's definitely a way, and I'll figure it out later. I could just open this file in a browser, and your browser will decode. It will read this code here, and it will say, okay, I'm gonna run this HTML code, for example, and here's what it would display. Okay. So all that's happening in Bitcoin is a very similar process where someone is embedding the HTML file inside of a transaction. And then bitcoinfiles.org is acting as the browser, right? So they're acting as the viewer into the blockchain. And they're saying, I'm going to read in, I'm going to read in the HTML and I'm going to display, I'm actually going to run the code, right? And this is a similar, example of like Snake, right? That's why Snake is running off of bco.media. They've created a way to read in the code that was written, which I'm sure I could do the same. So again, it's calling HTML right here. Let's see if I could probably do the same thing here and run. So you can see here, if bitcoinfiles.org doesn't support some of the stuff that's in here. So it's only actually reading in the HTML itself, but therefore bco.media is able to read it in and run the code and say, okay, I'm going to play Snake, right? So
I think it also kind of is interesting too how you talked about like how like Bitcoin files kind of acts as like the browser. And if you start thinking about like that acts as the browser, and then you have browser wallets now, where everything that you do interacts with payments and transactions. Like whether you're accessing information and you pay a little bit for it, it's just like it's insane to think about.
It really is. Yeah.
Like my head's kind of going in circles here, just thinking about it, because I'm not a big, I don't know, coder or HTML guy. But I mean, I get at like a high level how it essentially calls things to execute, and
Well, and again, though, what should excite everybody is the business opportunities involved, right? I mean, every single there's so many business opportunities that you can build on top of this stuff. Because again, people are stupid and they don't actually understand that Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin yet. They don't understand what Bitcoin at scale is possible. So if you're listening to us, you can now be like, oh, I understand. Maybe you understand how to program some stuff. You'll be like, oh, this stuff kind of makes sense. And now you can go build a business, right? And you can give us a percentage because we told you to do it, right? But the benefits of like, okay, well, I understand now what's possible. I can now build, like I saw a bit index, I think is what it's called. I remember in London, Ryan was urging a group of guys to like, please go build this. We need an XPub index, right? And charge money for it and make money doing this, right? And they went out and did it, and it's perfect. And I don't know. It's just again, we're only at 100 kilobytes. Only at 100 kilobytes. I saw deserves a shout out. I haven't gotten to look at it too much, but MPAPEC is chaining transactions together. So he made a video or an audio file that was an hour long or something like that, or a minute and a half long, and that's from chaining transactions with Opportune, which was possible before, but it's harder. The more strict you are on Opportune, it's harder to do stuff like that, right? And then you have to actually parse stuff together. So it's not as easy where I can just pull up the transaction, and maybe I wanted to run it myself. I could just download the HTML and run it myself, for example, if it's a website, right? So I don't know, man. The world is the world is changing very, very rapidly. And I think Alex Agut had a nice little like quote he tweeted out where he was saying like, yeah, in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. And I think that's true. The people who are starting to understand this stuff, you can start building things that allow you to profit probably pretty greatly when this stuff works out, which I'm convinced it will. I'm fully convinced it will.
Yeah. And like, I was just thinking about it too. Like, I think we're at like a potential of 128 megabyte right now blocks. And it's just like, that's still nothing when you think about it. Like when we're talking about this, like all this stuff, like interacting with websites, companies putting their data on chain, it's like 128 is nothing. And it kind of even blows your mind when like Core really like 1 megabyte is too much. Like they need to go lower.
Well, I look forward to the day where 1 megabyte is our op return.
For real.
And you know what I mean? And what they're doing every 10 minutes, we're doing every transaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and the best part of all this is it makes all of your cash transactions cheaper. That's what people aren't understanding either. That the more, so right now it's cost you, your transaction cost is based on the size of the transaction, right? So the more expensive the transaction, or the more data intensive or larger the transaction is, the more your transaction costs. Moore's law, again, we're talking about Moore's law, we're talking about economics. Both these things, just combine these two concepts and you say, okay, pretty soon, just like, you know, sending a 2 gig file over the internet seemed unheard of 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of keep going with these things, okay, eventually your, you know, kilobytes size transaction for cash transactions is going to be a fraction of a penny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone goes like, this isn't sustainable, but in fact, the more you scale, the more affordable all of this stuff is. You know what I mean? And I want to just, maybe we can almost leave it at this, because this is an interesting, I don't know if you saw this, very interesting conversation that was put on chain where the names are grayed out. Again, let's see. Yep. Again, I have no idea who these people are. Yep. He mentioned me in an article he wrote, humbled, but I'm getting, this is person A, but I'm getting what you see. Bitcoin is a currency you use to write to an immutable chain. Eventually, it makes sense to write all data to the chain. Person B, yes. Library of Alexandria. Person A. And miners will compete viciously to process those transactions and do it cheaper. Person B. Yes. But now imagine you store the definitions of a programming language on chain. Now, to bootstrap a program, all you need to do is call up certain transactions in a certain order. Then to store your entire program, you just place that certain order into a single transaction, just like they are doing. And now your program is referenced by a hash. So if someone wants to use that program, all you have to do is give them the hash where it's stored. They don't have to pass you anything else. Now, imagine thousands of programs have been built like GitHub, and you want to create a new program based on a bunch of other people's programs. But you need to reference 1,000 people's programs, which are referencing 1,000 people's programs that are referencing programming language primitives that number in the thousands. This would be difficult to assemble for this new programmer to go out and find all those transactions and put them together. So he hires miners. These miners aren't mining Bitcoin blocks. They're using GPUs to search through the entire blockchain very fast. They then return with all of the transactions this programmer needs to make his new reference program very quickly. The transaction miners are paid for their service. And the new programmer takes his program and stores it on chain as a single transaction. This gives him a hash to his program, which is built on hashes he received from transaction miners who found all of the transactions he referenced from all the on-chain resources he used. This expands infinitely. The person A, fuck.
I love that response. I love that response.
Interesting concept.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting concept, right?
Yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, this is that Mandela network that, how do you incentivize that middle layer that we've kind of talked about, but you have the core, the actual miners, you have that middle core that is still heavily connected, but the question is, how are they incentivized to be connected? I would imagine that that's what we're describing right there. So
whoa,
this is being built now, apparently. So allegedly being built right now. So I think Corey, I think we I remember downloading songs. We'll take the last 4 minutes. I remember downloading songs from Kazaa at 5 kilobytes per second. Yes, I remember those days too, right? This is interesting, right? We've come a long way, and we will continue to go a long way, right?
I just can't wait till we can do the first live stream on chain.
Yeah, we will be the first ones to do it. Mark our words, right?
Yeah, it might take a while, but big data.
Big data. Big data. I did see, hopefully if we can, I want to put one of our podcasts on chain using that tool that Mpapak, however you pronounce his name, sorry. He used where you can chain the transactions. So we'll do that first, but the sooner we can put it in one transaction, the better is my viewpoint. So
we should try and put the Bitcoin white paper series that we did.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty sweet.
That would be good too. Yeah, I agree. Okay, actually, I'll take this question. This is actually just a question. We'll maybe end it here unless you have anything else. But
okay,
if Bitcoin gets to more, because we kind of address this concept as Bitcoin scales, how do you pay for less than 1 cent? So if Bitcoin gets to more than $1 million, how do you pay for less than 1 cent when 1 Satoshi equals to 1 cent? That's very simple, right? You tokenize a Satoshi. Very, very simple. So you have 100 tokens that correspond with 1 Satoshi, and now you divided the Satoshi by 100, and bada bing, bada boom. Very simple. Would that mean no cap? No, there's still a cap. There's still a cap of 21 million. You're just doing the equivalent of adding more decimal places. T38 says, I wouldn't care to be rich. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Corey, anything else, or should we wrap it up?
I think that's good.
All right, good.
Just plug. Everyone should check out Unwriteer and what he's been doing if you haven't done so already.
Definitely. We will end this. I think a good plan would be we will unlist the video link, put it behind a yours paywall, upload the video to Keyport, and then we'll make it public again at some point later on. So we'll give a shout out to our Twitter fam. Thank you guys. appreciate you.
BSV is the future.
Yes. Very good. All right, Corey. Will
right.
You survive the evening? I don't know if I will.
Yeah, you have it tougher over there.
This may be my last episode, so maybe dead tomorrow morning.
Or maybe you'll just be maybe it'll be nice because then you'll just freeze and then you'll melt and come back to life when we're all using Metanet, and it'll be awesome.
That would be good. I'm
kind
okay.
of jealous. I kind of want to come over there and do that.
All right, good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We are gonna quit this now.
All right. See.